So students, welcome all. So we are going to start our passage based questions. So as you know that is an important topic in our logical reasoning. So we will be discussing a few passages just to get an idea, brief idea on how to attempt these type of questions. And as you know, the bulk of the questions will be from this topic. So obviously a clarity will boost your marks in the CLAT exam as well. Okay, so we can just try with a few passages. So the first passage which we are going to look is been mentioned here. Okay, so as you know, the passages will be long. Okay, so that is a challenge. But what you have to do is just take a few time, say 3 to 4 minutes, and just read the passage very well, because if you are able to get the ideas which have been mentioned in the passages, that will make your life easier while doing the questions. Okay. So first what we are going to do is just try to explain the passage. Just first we will be just reading it and trying to explain in that, and then while doing the questions as well, we can just try and get a brief idea of what they have been told. Okay. So as you know, most of the questions will be related to the current affairs. So I think you will be able to understand that a bit more. Okay. So first what we can do, just first read through the passage in detail. So first what they are told here, the depreciation of an economy's currency is not a matter of concern in itself. Okay. The decline in value against the major currencies has to be viewed within a set of macroeconomic factors. Okay. The recent depreciation of the Indian currency is a case in point. Okay. The rupee has been depreciating for a long time. So what are of concern now are the rate at which the depreciation is occurring and the underlying factors causing the change. The Russia-Ukraine war has disrupted the supply chains, causing commodity prices to rise, leading to a worldwide hardening of inflationary trends. Okay. So this in turn has caused major central banks to raise the interest rates, forcing investors back to safe haven of the US dollar. For India, these headwinds from the global economy have caused the several problems. The rise in international prices, especially of crude oil, has led to a major import bill and hence a greater demand for the dollars. Okay. So higher interest rate in developed country markets have caused a significant outflow of portfolio investments from India, aggravating the already climbing demands for dollars from a rising import bill. Okay. So by May 2022, the foreign institutional investors had pulled out rupees 1.50 lakh crore from Indian markets. Okay. Second paragraph says that in the face of these pressures, the rupee left to itself would decline in value as the rupee price of a dollar would increase subsequently. Okay. So one way the Reserve Bank of India could stem the tide would be the sell of the dollars in the market to ease the supply situation. However, this would mean that the value of the rupee could be contained. Could be contained. The national's foreign exchange kitty would start to erode further. Okay. The RBI has been doing exactly that. The challenge before the RBI is this: how much to let the rupee depreciate and how much to intervene to prop into prop into up. Too much depreciation would raise the domestic inflation rates and price rupee of the imports, especially oil, would raise cost of production. This would trigger in rise in politically controlled interest rates, which closely monitoring the near future. Okay. So the Indian economy's health is not exactly at its best. Okay. Exports may not be able to take advantage of a falling rupee since the international demand is is expected to stagnate. Okay, so India's growth and employment situations are yet to stabilize to what they were about a decade ago. Okay, so the RBI has difficult choices controlling inflation versus stimulating the growth and stabilizing the rupee without severely diminishing the economy's foreign exchange kitty. Okay, so this is what is being said in the paragraph, in the two paragraphs. So what we can conclude is they are basically talking about India's currency falling. As we know, our valuation against the dollar is falling day by day. So here what they have told, they have basically told the reasons why it is been falling and what are the challenges of RBI. So what all challenges are there in front of them. So basically these things have been said in the paragraph. Okay, so that is what we can summarize from the two paragraphs that we have just read. Okay, now what we can do is there are two approaches here. One approach is you can just read the total paragraph and then try with the questions, or otherwise there is an option just first reading the questions that they have asked and then going for the paragraph or the passage. Okay, so both approaches are good. Just try the both approaches. Which approach is comfortable for you, you can just opt for that. Okay, because some students might prefer to read the paragraph thoroughly first and then go for the questions. Some might just be looking to read all the questions first and then go for the paragraph to just cite what all questions are being asked and just try to concentrate on that point. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to just try with the two cases, try with the first method and then try with the second one, and which is comfortable for you, you can just try for that. That is the logic that we can use. Okay, now just going to the questions, what all they have asked, if you are just reading it. Okay, so first question, if you are just reading it, what they have asked, which of the following is the authors most likely to agree with. Okay, so we have to just know which of the following is the author most likely to agree with. So they have given 5 options and we have to just try and get into the author's mind and just predict which of the statements would he be agreeing with. Okay, so we are just reading the options here. First, what they have told, it is a major cause of concern if an economy's currency is depreciating. So that is the first thing that they have told. Now the second option says that currency depreciation is not a reason for worry in itself. Okay, but if macroeconomic factors are not good, there may be a cause of concern. Okay, now the third point that they have given is the fact that the Indian rupee is witnessing a decline in value against major currencies is very worrisome. Okay, now the fourth option they have given is a central bank must always do everything in its power to stem the slightest depreciation of an economy's currency. So a good question. Okay, so which is the option that you can mark most agreed to? Which of the following is most agreed to, will the author be agreed with? That is what you have to mark. Okay, now if we are just going in detail, what we can do, you can just compare it with the statement. Like we said, just try and fix where all these things have been said and do it, or otherwise if you are just reading it on a stretch and trying to do it, that is also a good option to try and tackle this question. Okay, now if you are just discussing every point in detail, the first option says that it is a major cause of concern if a economy's currency is depreciating. Okay, so obviously there is a cause of concern, but okay, because as we know, the economy, it could increase, it is always a fluctuating thing. Okay, so if it is depreciating, that is also a cause of concern, but will the author agree with it? We can't say. Okay, it's not 100% sure that the author will agree with that. Okay, now the second point, if we are just seeing currency depreciation is not a reason for worry in itself, okay, but if macroeconomic factors are not good, there may be a cause of concern. Okay. Now, if we are just going back to the passage once again, okay, here they have told with regards to this condition. Okay. So, see, if we just reading the third or the fourth line, they had told about the recent depreciation, okay, of the Indian rupees. Recent depreciation is a cause of case in point. The rupee has been depreciating for a long time. What are of concern now is the rate at which the depreciation is occurring, and the underlying factors is causing a change. Okay, and then they have told about the macroeconomic factors as well. Okay, so if you are just reading it, see that they have told about the macroeconomic factors. Okay, so it has been given here, macroeconomic factors that they have told here. Okay, so macroeconomic factors means what? As they told in the second paragraph, RBI it has to stabilize everything. So, as they are told, if they have to control or they have to improve the currency, the value of our Indian currency, they have to sell the dollars. If they are selling the dollars, that could be a risk, okay, and that could also affect the employment rate and the country's economy as well. So, second point, as we can see, as we just discussed in the first question, we can mark the answer as second option, because this is the point which the author has to agree with, because he has already told that depreciation is a concern, but it is not a large concern, but if the macroeconomic factors are not good, then it is also a cause of concern. So, second point is the one which we can place it in this question. If we are just going for the other options, the fact that Indian rupee is witnessing a decline in value against major currencies is very worrisome. Okay, so that is not been that the author hasn't compared it with other countries and all, other currencies and all. So, that can't be the answer. If we are just going for the fourth option, central bank must always do everything in its power to stem the slightest depreciation of an economy's currency. So, he hasn't told, the author hasn't said anything about that. He has told that they can do, but he has also told that they have a few factors of concern. So, obviously, the fourth point can't be matched with the author's opinion. So, the best option is the second one. So, I hope that you got the solution here. Okay. Now, moving on to the second question here, what is being said? Based on the author's arguments, okay, which of the following is true would reduce the decline in the value of rupee. Okay. Now, we have to, based on the author's arguments, which of the following if true. So, we have to just try to get a solution, okay, to reduce the decline in the value of rupee. Okay. So, options, if we are just reading, appointing a new governor for the RBI who has a better sense of how to control inflationary trends. So, that we are just reading that, you can easily say it is wrong. Okay. That is not a sort of a what we can say is a kind of a remedy to withstand the decline of value of rupee. So, first one is wrong, if just reading that you can get it. Second one is steep increase in the commodity prices and continued disruption of supply chains. Okay. So, that is okay. We just read all the options and then try to connect it. The third option says that a reduction in worldwide inflationary trends and a reduction of interest rates in developed country markets. And the fourth point, they are told the RBI buying as many dollars as possible from the market. Okay. So, two points you can directly take, it is wrong, the first and the fourth. First says that what you have to do, you have to just appoint a new governor and try and control it. That is not possible, and trying to buy all the dollars won't be a solution. Okay. So, that itself won't decline, that itself won't what we can say, won't reduce the decline of rupee. So, first and fourth are just reading that you can directly say it is wrong. Okay. Now the second and the third one are good cases. Second one, if I just reading a steep increase in the commodity prices and continued disruption of supply chains. Okay, so that will that reduce the value of rupee? No. If we are just increasing the prices of the commodity, the inflation would increase. So that would always fluctuate the value of rupee. So that is also not a remedy to control the value of currency. So that also could be eliminated. So from this we can mark the third one is right. If we are just reading it as well, you can easily understand a reduction in the worldwide inflationary trends and reduction of interest rate in developed market countries. Okay, so that is the right thing, because if we are just going back to the passage, here in the author has already stressed on the major issues that this in turn has caused the because of the wars and all, the central banks had raised the interest rates, forcing investors back to the safe haven of the US dollar. Okay, so the interest rate were increased because of the war situation and all, and if these situations are coming to a normal, obviously the investors will come back to India, okay, and then they will invest more of the amount. So the situation could come to a normal as well. So that is a good point, or that has to be the remedy for this. Okay. So for the second question, the answer could be the third option here. Okay. So I hope that you got the second question as well. Okay. Now moving on to the third one. Third question, if we are just reading it, the question asked is, which of the following, if true, would most weaken the author's argument? Okay. So you have to see which will weaken the argument of the author. With regards to the author's idea, you have to place which will weaken it. Okay. So that is an important point. Just first reading all the options will give you a better idea. First option, the Indian economy has been affected by the global inflationary trends, okay, and the increase of interest rates in developed country markets. Okay. That is a thing we know already. The second point, since the developed country markets have increased their interest rates, the global investors have pulled their investment out of other economies and routed them to such developed country markets. Okay. Now the third one, as the demand for the US dollar increases, it is likely the rupee price of a dollar would increase substantially. And the fourth point says that the Indian economy and the currency are highly protected and have been insulated from the effects of global inflationary trends and increase of interest rates in developed country markets. Okay. So, we are just reading it, what you have to find out, that is important. We have to see that which is most likely to weaken the author's argument. So, just reading it, you can easily understand that the answer has to be the fourth one, because the first three are saying the points which is being said in the statement that are true. So, that is not weakening the author's argument, but the fourth one is saying that Indian economy is being highly protected and it is being not affected by the insulated trend. So, it is the direct opposite of what is being said in the statement. Okay. So, from there we can easily understand that the answer for the third question has to be the last option or the last statement. Okay. So, hope that you got it. So, this was a bit more easier, just reading the options would get you the answer. Okay. So, always look what does the question is being asked. So, here they are told about weakening, which argument is weakening which option is weakening the author's argument. So, the thing which I are saying, what does basically this fourth one says the opposite of what the author is saying. So, that will substantially weaken the author's argument. Okay. So, we can place the answer as fourth option here. Now, moving on to the fourth question, which are the following, if true, would most strengthen the author's arguments for why Indian exports may not be able to take advantage of the falling rupee. Okay. So, we can just read the options as we did in the last question. Now, economies across the world are witnessing a slowdown, okay, and in such economies demand for import decreases substantially. Okay. Now, the second one, economies across the world are booming and there is an increased demand for Indian exports. Okay. Now, a reduction in the volume of the exports would be more than offset by the increased value of dollars that Indian exports would earn. Okay. Exporters would earn. Okay. Fourth one, countries across the world have managed to find ways to insulate themselves from the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war and will lead a lot of Indian imports to sustain their new growth models. Okay. So, what was the question? Which would most strengthen the, as we can say, it is directly opposite to the third question. So, here what we are looking at, which would strengthen the author's arguments on why Indian exports may not be able to take advantage of the following. Okay. So, which is the right one? The first statement, if I just saying, economies across the world are witnessing a slowdown, and in such economies demand for imports decreases substantially. Okay. So, as we just discussed in the, okay, if we just going back to the passage, they have already told that because of the war, the investors, what they are doing, they are going for the safer one, they are going for the safer economies, that's why the price of the US dollar had increased. Okay. So, if the war is happening, all the investors, what they will do, they would go for the safer markets, that is the US dollars. Okay. So, now if we are just going back to the question here, as we just saw in the passage, the economies across the world are witnessing a slowdown, and in such economies demand for import decreases substantially. So, this one is the right one. So, they had asked which argument is going to strengthen it. So, the first one is right. Okay. Because as we just saw in the passage, it has been said that if there is an issue or if a war arises, mostly the investors try to invest where it is safe. Okay. So, that means it would slow down the other economies, like we said, like we saw in the passage as well. Okay. So, first option is the one which is strengthening the author's argument, okay, on why Indian exports may not be able to take advantage of the falling rupee. Okay. Now, moving to the next question. Okay. So, fifth question, what they have asked, based on the author's argument, okay, which of the following must necessarily be true? Okay. Now, just going for the options here. First statement, if I just reading, the continuing depreciation of Indian rupee at its current rate coupled with worldwide inflationary trends would result in immense political instability in India and consequently in all of South Asia. Okay. The second one, if nothing else is done, the rise of Indian rates in developed country markets coupled with hardening of inflationary trends across the world would result in a fall of value of rupee against the dollar. Third option says that if the inflationary trends continue to harden across the world, if interest rates in developed country markets continues to rise, the portfolio investors will increase their investments in India and will have a positive impact on India's foreign exchange reserves. Okay. Now, last option says that if nothing else is done, interest rate in developed country markets coupled with hardening of inflationary rates will result in increase in the value of rupee against the dollar. Okay. So, this is also a bit more easier if you are just able to, as we said, if your passage is clear, you can easily do these questions. So, as we can see, the option, the answer has to be the second option. Okay. If you are just reading it, it is bit more clear, because they have already told if nothing else is done, the rise of interest rates in developed country markets coupled with hardening of inflationary rates across the world would result in a fall of rupee against the dollar. So, that is already been said in the passage. So, if this trend is continuing, the inflation is increasing and interest rate is increasing in the developed country markets, so obviously our currency would decrease against the dollar. Okay. So, it has been understood. So, B option is the right one. Okay. Now, moving to the next question. Okay, one more question is there based on this passage. So, here what they have asked is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with. Okay, now first reading the 4 options. The RBI must not focus solely on preventing the depreciation of the rupee, as that may result in negative impact on other aspects of the economy. Second option, the RBI must focus solely on preventing the depreciation of the rupee at all costs, since it is by far the most important indicator of the health of the Indian economy. Periodic inflation drills are normal in any economy, and RBI need not worry about that. That has been told in the C option. D option says that RBI need not do anything to reduce the rate of depreciation of the rupee, since the depreciation of an economy's currency is not a matter of concern in itself. So, just reading it, you can just eliminate some of the options. That last option is purely wrong, okay, because if the depreciation of currency, if the currency is value is decreasing, that is a cause of concern. It has been said it is not a cause of concern. So, D is eliminated, C is also eliminated. They are told that inflationary trends is not a cause of concern, okay. So, that is also a direct no, okay. Now, we are just left with first and the second option. The second option we are focusing, they are told, they are saying that RBI should only focus on how to increase the value of currency of India. Okay, that means you have to try, not looking at the other factors, you have to just concentrate on how we can prevent the depreciation. All the other factors mustn't be considered. Okay, so that is wrong. Okay, because if you are just considering that factor, the other aspects will affect, and that will eventually affect your economy. Okay, so B option is also wrong. A is the option which you can give. Okay, that RBI must not solely focus on preventing the depreciation of rupee, as that may result in negative aspects on other aspects of the economy. So, they might not be solely focusing on that, because that could affect the other aspects of the economy. So, A option is the one which we can agree, or the author also would agree with that, based on the statement that is, or the passage that they have given. Okay. So, I hope that you got it. So, as I said, better is to read, just give a bit more time, try and read the passage well, and try to get the inputs of what the author is saying and what is his ideas. So, that will help you to do the questions. Okay. Otherwise, you can do, what you can do is, like I said in the starting, you can just read the passage first, read the questions first and then go for the passage. Okay. So, better is the first option. Okay. I think better will be the one. First, you just read the passage once or twice, get the idea of what the author is saying, and try to get in the mind of the author. So, that will make your life easier when doing the questions. Okay. So, I hope that you got the first passage. Now, we will be just moving to the next passage. Okay. Now, I think we can move to the next passage. So, first, like we did in the last passage, just first we can just read it and then go for the questions. Okay. So, what does this set say? Just if you are just reading it, the post-truth era is expectedly marked by discounting erosion of public interest in source of information. Mass media, both traditional and new age avatars, has borne the brunt of this mistrust, and for good reasons too. Social media, its most popular platform, is the harbinger of falsity, and it is thus encouraging to see that at least the old guard of the media ecosystem, the newspaper, continues to defy this discouraging trend. A pan-India survey of media consumption by Lokini found that print media remains the most trusted source of information. The findings is consistent with the hardening surge in public endorsement of the reliability of newspapers since the pandemic. An earlier survey which attempted to examine the impact of lockdown on reading patterns have found that most of the readers who used to spend over an hour on newspapers every day has risen to 38 percentage, up from 16 in the pre-lockdown period. The increased trust in newspapers is because the lockdowns coincided with the uh, dissemination of the crudest kinds of misinformation about the pandemic in India and around the world, and the newspapers played a pivotal role in exposing these lies. Okay, so this has been said in the first para. In the second para, if you just read, but that is where the good news ends for the print media at least. Among other things, the data collated by the survey found deepening footprints of social media in rural and urban constituencies, while television continues to dominate the screen. These developments are consistent with global trends that reveal that the newspaper industry is struggling to contain the migration of readers and revenue to other formats, especially digital media. Ironically, the pandemic, which saw resurgence in collective trust in newspapers, adversely affected the print media as a traditional advertisers reeling under the economic fallouts of COVID-19 cut back on advertisement, but this crisis in print precedes the pandemic. Newspapers have been outpaced by speeder but also the other sources of information. The dominance of the image over text as a cultural phenomenon is another formidable challenge. The print media's hopes of remaining competitive and profitable must therefore center on using the collective trust as a form of capital. Okay. So, survival strategies, especially the revenue model, must be re-explored and the emphasis shift to in-depth analysis of news as well as eye-catching layouts now that newspapers are slower to reach news to the audience. Okay. So, basically this two paragraphs, if we are just dividing it, the first para is saying about the advantages of newspaper and what all are the advantages and the positive side of newspaper. But the second para is saying about the challenges that newspapers are mainly dealing in this present scenario, especially the print media. Okay, because of the digital media, the print media is having a is affecting. So it has been said what all problems are they facing in the current scenario, and what all strategies could be what all the things that they can work on to get their revenue back or get the scale back as it was before. Okay. So, this is basically the main things that they have told. Now, I think we can just move to the questions to just get a basic idea. Now, the first question, the seventh question, if you are just seeing, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Okay. So, that is being asked. If you are just reading the four statements, the COVID-19 pandemic was an unmitigated disaster for the newspaper industry. Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic had a negative as well as positive effect on the newspaper industry. Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic only had good effects on the newspaper industry. COVID-19 pandemic had no effect on the newspaper industry. So this is an easy question as we just discussed in the two paras. The first para they had said about the advantages, and the second para the problems which the newspaper is facing. So the answer is pretty easy here, or straightforward as we can say. The answer has to be option B, or the second option. Okay, that is the COVID-19 pandemic had a negative as well as positive effect on the newspaper industry. Okay. The COVID-19 pandemic only had good effects on the newspaper industry. COVID-19 pandemic had no effect on the newspaper industry. So this is an easy question as we just discussed in the two paras. The first para they had said about the advantages, and the second para the problems which the newspaper is facing. So the answer is pretty easy here, or straightforward as we can say. The answer has to be option B, or the second option. Okay, that is the COVID-19 So the COVID-19 So the second point, the COVID-19 pandemic had its negative as well as positive effects on the newspaper industry. Okay, so this is the right one. So this is a bit more straightforward question. Now moving on to this eighth question, which are the following if true would most weaken the author's arguments? Okay, so which will weaken it? That is being asked here. Now if you just reading it, social media is a reliable source of true and accurate news and information. Okay, then social media is highly unreliable source of news and information should not be trusted. Okay, social media is a good way for people to stay connected. Social media is a sweeter source of information than newspapers. So here what we have to look for, we are looking for which would most weaken the author's arguments. So as we can just read, author is mainly saying about the drawbacks of social media because of this all fake news and all which had spread during the pandemic era. So it is mainly focusing on the negative aspects. So if a statement is saying about the positive aspects of social media, particularly about the news and information, that point has to be our answer here. Okay, so we can say that option A is the right answer here. Social media is a reliable source of true and accurate news and information according to the author. Okay, so what is the author saying? The opposite is being said in the option A. Okay, so I hope that you got this question as well. Now moving to the next question here. Okay, the ninth one, which of the following would be an effective way of making printing media more competitive? Okay, so just reading the options. Slowing down the process of printing media production, so that is one option. Using more expensive printing methods to achieve better print quality, even if it results in newspapers becoming more expensive. Okay. Third point has been said that only publishing newspapers on alternate days and developing ways of enriching ensuring that print media can reach readers more speedily. Okay, now if we just going to the passage once again. Okay, so in the passage in the last part they have told about it. Okay, just going back to the passage. Okay, so what could be done? Survival statistics strategies, especially the revenue model, must be re-explored and emphasis should be shifted on in-depth analysis of the news, okay, as well as eye-catching layouts now that newspapers are slower to reach news to the audience. Okay. So what they are told, what all could be done? One was in-depth analysis of the news, okay, as well as eye-catching layouts. So the layout or the quality of printing could be improved. That newspapers are slower to reach news to the audience. Okay, so that means eye-catching layouts is also a thing that could be worked upon. Okay, now if we are just going back to the questions now here, that is the ninth one. Now which option could be marked as an answer here? Slowing down the process of printing media production is not any sort of a positive thing, or it is not the solution here. Using more expensive printing methods to achieve better print quality, even if it results in newspapers becoming more expensive. So some options you can directly, for A and C is directly not possible. Okay. Now D, if we are saying developing ways of ensuring that print media can reach readers more speedily. Okay. So that is an option, or using more expensive printing methods that achieve better print quality even if it results in newspapers becoming more expensive. So that can't be an effective way, because so we can mark the D as our answer. Okay, that means ensuring that the print media can reach the reader speedily. So that is also a point which we discussed in the passage. Okay, why we are marking B as wrong? Because if it becomes expensive, then the readers won't buy it. Say if on an average, if a newspaper comes for 10 rupee per day, if you are increasing the print quality, it might become 20 per day. So that won't attract the readers. So that is not a good way or an effective way of increasing the readers. So this is out of the four, the fourth one is a reliable thing that could be done to improve the issue here. Okay. So here we can mark our answer as D option. Okay. Now moving on to the next one. Now what does it say? Based on the author's arguments, okay, which of the following, if true, would have resulted in the weakening rather than deepening of public trust in newspapers since the pandemic? Okay, a good question. First we can just read the options. First one says that newspapers were very careful in ensuring they reported accurate and true news during the lockdowns. Okay. Newspapers played a leading role in exposing lies and information spread during the lockdown. Newspapers actively disseminated misinformation during the lockdowns and made no efforts to expose lies spread by others. The fourth point says that newspapers alerted the public to the fact that a number of sources were spreading crude forms of misinformation during the pandemic. So what was the question? If you are just going back, here they have told, based on the author's arguments, which are the following, if true, would result in weakening. Okay. So which weakens the point which the author is saying, rather than deepening of public interest in newspapers in the pandemic. So we have to see about the which one weakens the point with respect to the author's arguments. Okay. Now if you are just going back, the first one is bit more making it strong, because newspapers were very careful in ensuring it provides accurate and true information. That doesn't weaken it. The second one, it played a, this is all the first 2 points are saying about the positive of the newspapers. Third one, it actively dismantled misinformation, and the last point they have told, saying about newspapers alerted to the public to the fact that a number of sources were spreading crude forms of misinformation during the pandemic. Okay. So which is the option that you can give? Which is the option that you can give? Any ideas? Okay. So we can mark the fourth one as our answer. Okay. Why? Because the first three, as we are seeing, says about the positive things of the newspapers. So that is not weakening the argument. So the fourth one is weakening, because they told that newspapers are alerted that some sources were spreading crude forms. So that is not being said in by the author. Okay. That it was only said that newspapers were giving true information. They were not exposing any other information or misinformation. That is not said. So which is weakening the argument? Obviously the fourth option is weakening the argument. Okay. I hope that you got it. Now moving to the next questions. Okay. The 11th one. So what they have asked here, which would be the, what would be the impact on the readership and revenues of the print media if the image were not dominant over the text as a cultural phenomenon? Okay, good question. If you are just reading through the options, print media would not suffer as much of a reduction in readership and revenue as readers shifted to other formats. Print media would suffer a greater reduction in readership and revenue as readers shifted to other formats. There would be no impact on readership and revenue of the print industry. And the fourth one says that there would be an increased demand from readers that newspapers carry more images and less text. Okay. So what was the question? Which of the following would impact on the readership and revenue of the print media if the images were dominant over text? So if image were dominant over the text, which would what would be the reason that would impact their readership and revenue? Okay. Now if you are just reading the as we read the options, the first, either the first or the second has to be the answer. Okay, the first, if I just reading once again, print media would not suffer as much of a reduction in readership and revenue as readers have shifted to other formats. Okay, so that is what we can mark it. Okay, because if they won't suffer as much, as we can say, as readers have shifted to other forms that we are already seen. Okay, instead of print media, the author has said about the digital media as well. So the print media won't have suffered much because they had already moved to other formats. So that is the right thing which we can mark. Okay, the second option, if we see, it says that print media would suffer a great reduction in readership and revenue as readers shifted to other forms. If we are making more of a, if we are giving more of an image than text, it would. So that is not right, because if we are not, if we are doing that as well, already the readers have shifted. That is been said by the author. So A option is the right one. Okay. Now moving to the last question of this passage. What is the question? What does the author suggest newspapers can overcome the problem of being outspaced by speeder sources of information? Okay. So what all suggestions have been made? That is been asked. We are just reading the options first. They offer direct means by which newspapers can become faster to publish and deliver to readers. Okay. They encourage a complete and immediate shift to digital media as a way of ensuring newspapers are not outspaced by other sources of information. Now, the third option says that they offer ways to reduce production costs which would offset the losses caused by readers shifting allegiance to faster sources of information. Now, the fourth point says that they offer alternative means of newspapers to become competitive and profitable, but do not solve the problem of how newspapers can become faster source of information. Okay. Now, if we are just going back to the question, what does it say? How does the author suggest newspapers can overcome the problem of being outspaced by speeder source of information? Okay. So the fourth option is what we can mark here. Okay, because if we are just reading that point once again, it's been said that they offer a alternative means for newspapers to become competitive and profitable, that we saw in the last points, but do not solve the problem of how newspapers can become faster source of information. Okay, if we are just going back to the passage there, in the last point, it is being said there. Okay, see, they are shifted to in-depth analysis of news as well as eye-catching layouts now that newspapers are slower to reach news to the audience. Okay, so that problem is not being solved. Okay, they have told all the other alternatives, but how can it reach faster to the audience is not being said, or the author hasn't given an idea on how we can do that. So obviously D is the right option with regards to that. Okay. Okay. So I hope that you got the passage, the second passage. So like I said, it was a bit more easier because the points were bit more direct. Okay. So just go through it once again to get a better idea. So like we said in the first passage as well, first read the passage throughout. Okay, and try to get the ideas of what the author is thinking with regards to the passage. So that will make your life easier. Okay, and try and read the passage multiple times to get better understanding. Okay, so you need to get the points, the important points that is being said in the passage to do the questions properly. Okay, because if you are getting the understanding of the passage, questions is a bit of a cakewalk here. Okay. So I think now we can move to the next passage. So I think now we can move to the next passage here. So like in the previous passages, first we are going to read it, then we are going to discuss with the questions. Okay. So we are just reading it, two paragraphs are there. The first para what they have told, in this moment the developed countries, I point to them, because these countries have already burnt massive amounts of carbon dioxide for energy to build their economies, and are faced with the real energy conundrum. Okay. On the other hand, the developed countries are battered because of a fast heating planet. Temperatures have gone through the roof. Droughts and extreme weather events are hitting them as well. Okay. On the other hand, ordinary people in these countries are worried not just because of the climate change, but because of the lack of energy to heat their homes this coming winter. Okay. In the US, gas prices went up in summer so much that people traveled less and consumption of fuel dropped. Okay. So, but now the prices are down and it's business as usual. Okay. The fact is that this energy disruption have provided the much needed what to the fossil fuels industry. Okay. The governments are asking these industries to supply more. Europe has baptized natural gas a fossil fuel less polluting than coal, but still a major emitter of carbon dioxide as clean. Okay. The US has passed a climate bill which will invest in renewable energy, but conditional to increased spends on oil and gas and opening up on millions of hectares of federal land for filling. Okay. Through this bill, the US will do more than ever to build a manufacturing base for renewable industries, particularly solar. Okay. Europe, even in this desperate scramble for gas, is working to ramp up its investment in renewable power. So, it is the worst of times, it could be the best of times, but there are some caveats. Okay. So, once this renewable interest of in fossil fuel must remain temporary and transient. Okay. So, given the nature of economies, once the investments had been made in this new infrastructure or the supply of fossil fuels has increased from new oil and gas discoveries, it will be difficult to burn off. Okay. Two, these countries should not be entitled to more use of fossil fuels in a country of shrunk carbon budgets. Okay. They need to reduce the emissions drastically and leave whatever little carbon budget space that is remaining to poorer countries to use, thereby satisfying such poorer countries' demands. Okay. So, in this passage basically it is being said about the energy issue, the energy scarcity of the issue, and what all are these big countries trying to do if this energies are decreasing, because energy demand is very high in every country. So, and in the last portion it is been said and what the countries can do so that these source of fuels is being received to the poorer countries as well. So, it is being said in detail in this passage. Okay. So, an easy passage, if you just reading it twice, you will be getting a exact idea of what the author is saying and what is the main points of this passage. Okay. Now, moving on to the questions, if you just look through the questions, what all is been asked. The first question they have asked, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Okay. So, if you just reading the options, what they have told, people in the US are not worried at all about climate change. Second option, people in the US are worried about climate change and these concerns affect their energy consumption habits more than anything else. Okay. Then they have told about climate change has resulted in the increase of energy prices across the world, and as a result governments have had to invest in finding newer source of renewable energy, and changes in energy consumption habits of people in the US as affected more by energy prices than concerns of climate change. Okay. We are just reading it. we have to say this with respect to the author. What will the author agree with? That is the important point. Okay. Now, if we just going back to the passage here, okay, and I think in the first para itself, see, in the US, in example, it has been said the gas prices went up in the summer so much that people traveled less and consumption of fuel dropped. Okay. So, because of the gas prices increasing, people had traveled less, and that's why the consumption also decreased. Okay. But now the prices are down and it is business as usual. Okay. So, from that we can understand that they had increased the price to get more revenue. Since that revenue became down, then they decreased the prices. So, that is basically a business that is being said in the first para. Okay. Now, if we are just going back to the question here, in the fourth point, if we are just discussing it, changes in the energy consumption habits of people in the US has affected more by energy prices than concerns of climate change. So, that is what we can mark. Okay. That energy prices is the major cause of concern in US when compared to the climate change. Okay. So, D is the right answer for the 13th question here. Okay. Now, moving on to the next one. Here they have said which of the following is the most similar to author's statement about developed countries' renewed interest on fossil fuels. Okay. Now, they have given the options as well here. If you are just reading everything, developed countries should not under any circumstances invest any source in fossil fuel energy extraction and must immediately put a halt to all fossil fuel consumption. Then second one says that things could improve if developed countries recognize the difficulty of moving away from reliance on such source of energy and make a conscious effort to move to alternate or renewable sources quickly. The third point says that since the investment in energy extraction of any kind are very expensive, developed countries must ensure that they make permanent and continuing investments in fossil fuels. Okay. Fourth point says that developing countries must not under any circumstances consume fossil fuels and leave whatever carbon budget space is remaining to richer countries to use. Okay. So, we have to mark which of the following is most similar to author's statement about the developed countries' renewable interest in fossil fuels. Okay. So, if we are just reading it through, we can directly eliminate the fourth option if we are just reading it. So, which is the option which you can mark here? If we are just reading the second one that says about the idea which is being said by the author in the passage. We are just reading it once again. Things could improve if developed countries recognize the difficulty of moving away from reliance on such source of energy and make a conscious effort to alternate or renewable source or renewable energy sources quickly. So, that is being stressed by the author in the passage. So, we can mark our answer as B option here. Okay. Now, moving to the next question here. Okay. Now, what they have told here, which if the information in the passage is above is correct, okay, which of the following must be necessarily be true? Okay. So, 4 options they have given. First one says that the fossil fuel industries in developing countries will face reduced sale in short term with increased sale in long term. Okay. The second one, the cost of making, installing and using solar panels will reduce substantially in the coming years. Okay. Passing a bill in the US is a huge effort and it would not have been possible to pass the new climate bill unless the current energy crisis had compelled all lawmakers to do so. Okay. Then the fossil fuel industry in developing countries will see an increase in business at least in the short term. Okay. So, which is the option that we can correct based on the passage? Okay. So, if we are just reading it, okay, second point we can't make it right. Third point as well, passing a bill, it is been said about that. So, that is not a sort of a correct thing based on the passage here. So, first and the fourth option are the possibilities, which we can mark here. The first says about that fossil industry in developing countries has faced a reduced sales in short term. So, that is not being set like that. So, we can mark our answer as fourth option. Okay. The fossil fuel industry in developing countries is going to see an increase in business for a short term. Okay. So, that is right, because that is the only source which is available now. So, in the short term, that point is right, and it is been also said in the passage as well. Okay. So, the fourth will be the answer for this question. Okay. Now, moving to the next set, that is 16th one. Which of the following, if true, would weaken the author's argument, okay, about why travel and fuel consumption in the US reduced this summer. Okay. Now, we have to weaken, we have to take the which statement weakens it. Okay. So, that is an important point. I am just reading the options first. People like to travel regardless of season, and the only thing that would prevent them from traveling at any time of the year would be high cost. Okay. Airlines raise ticket prices as a response to increase in fuel prices, and thereby fewer people will be able to buy air tickets to travel. Okay. Strict lockdowns were imposed in US in the summer, because of which people travel less. Okay. So, it is not been said about that. Okay. So, going to the last point, widespread geopolitical tensions in the first half of the year meant that fuel prices were at an all-time high in summer, but the prices have now eased off somewhat, making fuel slightly more affordable in the US. Okay. Now, if we are just here, what we have to do, we have to take an option which is weakening author's argument. Okay. Now, author had basically said that why did they increase the fuel price? To get more business at that time. Okay. And after the peak, what they did, they decreased the fuel prices. So, basically the author is saying it is a pure business. So, we have to mark an option which is saying an opposite of that. Okay. That would weaken the argument. Okay. So, that is the concept here. So, which option is the one which we can mark here? Okay. So, first says about the preventing the people from traveling. Okay. So, that is not weakening the argument. Now, second one says about the airline price. Okay. Third one is saying about the lockdown scenario. Okay. Because of the lockdown, it was being done. Okay. So, that is a point. And the last point they have told it is saying about the geopolitical tensions. Okay. Because of that, this thing happened. Okay. So, if you are just seeing it, A, B, C are not connected to the point which the author is saying. So, the thing which is weakening it has to be the fourth one. Okay. Because geopolitical tensions obviously is based on a country, and if such issues occur, obviously the fuel prices would rise. So, that is a positive sort of a thing. Okay. So, that is obviously weakening the argument in this scenario. Okay. So, here we can mark our answer as option 4. Okay. Yeah. Now, moving to the next question here. Okay. Now, moving to the next one. Okay. Now, next question, what does it say? Which of the following, if true, would resolve the conundrum? The author says developed countries face now. Okay. So, what all are the options? The development of adequate renewable sources in the near term, that would lead to a reduction in consumption of fossil fuels. Okay. Finding a new source of fossil fuel that will ensure there is no shortage of energy to heat homes in the summer. Okay. Switching immediately to renewable power sources, even if it leads to a shortage in energy supply for people, and providing adequate aid to poorer countries so they can use the renewable sources. Okay. Okay. Now, if I just discussing this question, what is the thing that we can understand from here? The question is saying how we can resolve the issues that these developed countries are facing. So, we have to provide them with a solution. Okay. Now, in this case, which would be a solution? The development of adequate renewable energy source in the newer term would lead to a reduction in consumption of fossil fuels. So, obviously, if you are developing the renewable power sources, that will decrease the burden of the fossil fuels. Okay. So, that is a positive or the solution of solution that could be done, so that this developed countries energy crisis could be improved. Okay. So, we can mark here the option as option A. Okay. Now, moving to the last one, 18th question of this set. Assuming the aim of the US climate bill is to reduce the fossil fuel consumption, which of the following would be the strongest argument that it will fail to achieve such an aim? Okay, good question. We have to, assuming the aim of the US climate bill is to reduce the, we have to assume that their climate change bill aim was to reduce the fossil fuel consumption, then which of the following would be the strongest argument that it will fail to achieve such an aim? Okay. So, we have to find the strongest argument for this. Okay. If we are just seeing it, okay. First option says that the bill promotes investments in renewable energy, but does not provide for enough increase in investments in developing more sources of fossil fuel powered energy. The second option says the bill is written in technical language, where, okay, so that is not a strong argument. Now, moving to the third one, the bill is self-defeating since it makes investments in renewable sources conditional to more expenditure on oil and gas and making millions of hectares of federal land available for drilling, which would lead to an increased consumption of fossil fuels. Okay. Now, the fourth point says that the bill does not provide any means of increasing carbon budgets, thereby more space, making more room for fossil fuel consumption. Okay. So, these are the four points that they have given. So, we have to look for the one option which would be the strongest argument that it would fail. Okay. So, which is the option that you can mark? Okay, that is an important thing here. Okay. Okay. So, which is the option that you can give here is the third one. Okay, that because the bill is self-defeating since it makes investments in renewable energy conditional to more expenditures on oil and gas. So, if you are investing more on oil and gas, so obviously the fossil fuel will be more used. So, this sort of a bill would automatically be we can say that it won't achieve this aim here. Okay. So, we can mark our answer as the third option. Okay. So, in this case and all, just try to understand the question first. Okay. That is a crucial part, because if you are not able to understand the question, it will be difficult to get through the right option. Okay. So, first read the question properly, okay, and then try to eliminate. Okay, option elimination is also a way. Otherwise, just read all, first try to read every option, okay, and then just go through the question once again and then try to mark the answer. Okay. So, that will make your accuracy and understanding better in these types of passages. Okay.